Alrighty. So first and foremost, thank you so much for joining this Magically Live, where today we'll discuss the essential VPAT workshop for EdTech product leaders. For those of you who don't know, Magically Live is a series of events that we host in which we take one accessibility topic each time and take a deep dive into it. My name is EdTech. I am a CPAC certified accessibility consultant for Magic EdTech, and today I'm joined by Tarveen. Tarveen, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. This is Tarveen. I'm Director of Accessibility Service at MagicA11y, and thank you so much for joining our Magically Live series.
Alrighty, so just some housekeeping before we go ahead and get started. Please use the Q&A box to submit any questions. We'll go over our information for the first little bit, and then we'll go into a QA session after. This session is being recorded and will be shared out to the registrants a few days post the session, as well as a copy of our deck. Alrighty, so we'll go over our agenda before we dive in.
We need to move to,
Alrighty.
Thank you.
So first, we'll talk about understanding VPATs and ACRs. Then we'll talk about different editions of VPATs, conformance levels, processes and strategies of a VPAT to an ACR, some sample VPATs. We'll talk about how to draft an ACR, and then we'll talk about when you have an ACR, what you do with it. So we have a quote today: "If you think compliance is expensive, try non-compliance." And this is by Paul McNetley. And we have a poll for you before we go ahead and dive into our first slide. So the poll question reads, what is the main difference between a VPAT and an ACR? Your first option is a VPAT is a completed report, while the ACR is a template. Your second option is a VPAT is the template used to evaluate accessibility, while an ACR is the completed report. Your third option is a VPAT is mandatory, while an ACR is optional. And your fourth option is there is no difference, they are the same document. So we'll give you a minute to go ahead and submit your answers for that.
We'd love to hear from you and have 100% people responding, because this will gonna help us talk and elaborate more about specific sections within the slides.
Alrighty, let's see. Okay, and it looks like some people answered a VPAT is a completed report, while an ACR is the template. And most people answered a VPAT is the template used to evaluate accessibility, while an ACR is the completed report. Tarveen, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, absolutely. So the people who have responded the first option, this isn't right. Actually, VPAT is a template. Name itself calls out Voluntary Product Accessibility Template, and ACR is the filled information and a final outcome once you add info to your VPAT report. So the people who have responded second, they score 100%.
Alrighty, so let's get into some information about understanding VPATs and ACRs. The VPAT is indeed a template used to provide information about a product's accessibility features, and once it's filled out, it becomes an accessibility conformance report or an ACR. As Tarveen mentioned previously, the acronym for VPAT stands for Voluntary Product Accessibility Template. And the acronym for ACR stands for Accessibility Conformance Report. So the VPAT is the blank template, whereas the ACR is the filled out report that has all of the information that is specific to your product and your compliance. Tarveen, anything else to add on this?
No, I think we are good. ACR, we need to understand the outcome of the ACR. Whatever you add, we'll be talking about those elements in detail in the upcoming slides, but ACR is the final usable document for your users.
Alrighty. So moving on, editions of VPAT. There are a couple different editions depending on what your end goal and who your end market is. So there's Section 508. This is the U.S. Federal Accessibility Standard. So this is for U.S. There's WCAG, which is to WCAG 2.0, WCAG 2.1, or WCAG 2.2, whichever one is preferred by you and your organization. So it obviously aligns to WCAG guidelines. There's the EU, so this aligns to EN 301549, which is the European Union's accessibility requirement. And INTL, which is international, and this is encompassing of all three of the other types. All right, so conformance levels. There are a couple within this category. So the conformance levels obviously will go ahead and kind of portray what your overall conformance is when it comes to different categories and different areas within your ACR. So supports indicates that at least one motor aspect of the product meets the criterion and is usable with minimal effort. Partially supports indicates the product meets some but not all aspects of the criterion. Does not support indicates that most of the product does not meet the criterion. Not applicable, so indicates that the criterion does not apply to that product, or we can exclude the criterion by marking it as non-applicable. And not evaluated, which indicates that the product hasn't been assessed against that standard, applicable specifically to WCAG 2.x level AAA.
So just to add on this slide, people end up getting confused, like where it applies as does not support versus partially support. So we need to understand if we have an alternative mechanism to access given feature or content type or functionality within your product, then you can mark it as supports. But for example, I have alt text in my content and few images have alt text and few doesn't have the alt text. It will be partially support, but what if my contextual correctness or I have added a dummy content to my alt text, then it does not support. So we need to understand what is the impact, why I need to add partially support versus does not support. And not applicable is for the features, for example, closed caption, live recorded videos, and few other features that are not there in my product. For example, language of parts. I only tested my product for English content, so I don't need to worry about language of parts. In that case, my applicability will be not applicable. And not evaluated is most widely used for AAA guidelines because that's what we don't focus on. And it is mostly mentioned in table 3 in all the VPAT templates.
All righty. So moving forward, we have a poll. Which of the following best describes partially supports conformance level? Your first option is the product fully meets the accessibility criteria. Your second option is the product meets some accessibility requirements, but not all. Your third option is the product does not meet any accessibility criteria. And your fourth option is the product has not been evaluated for accessibility. So we'll give you a minute to go ahead and submit your answers.
Okay, Sanab, you can present.
Okay, and 100%, so everybody responded, the product meets some accessibility requirements, but not all. Alrighty.
Okay, moving on to the step-by-step guide towards ACR, how we start from a template and reach to final ACR. We'll start from step 1, as you see on the extreme left top corner. The auditor will understand the product workflow. First of all, we need to understand what are we testing. Like, are we testing the templates? Are we testing the product? Are we testing the user flows? Are we testing the videos? Whatever it is, we need to analyze what are we auditing. Once you have finalized the scope, build up a strategy. For example, I received a request to test a website. Now it has almost thousands of pages. So I will not strategize that I'll test all 1,000 pages. I'll go to my product team to understand, is there a templates that are being used while building up this website? Yes, then I'll follow a templatized approach, and that will be my strategy, and rest can be done through automated process. Once the scope and strategy is done in step 1, step 2 will be to perform the accessibility audit along with your experts and people with disabilities, because real user feedback plays a very vital role, and that needs to be incorporated at right stage. Once that is done, we'll be delivering a comprehensive audit report detailing out screenshot, bug information, rational recommendation, and videos wherever applicable. Once the final audit is completed, we'll be sending the audit reports to our engineering team or the remediation partners, and we'll help them understand the category, top priority issues, how we have reported issues, what are the high severity issues, and all of that. We need to work in collaboration with them to give the message that yes, the reported issues are important from accessibility standpoint. You can't expect your engineers to have the goal of accessibility being ingested right stage, and that's not their ownership. That's the ownership that we hold as an accessibility experts. Once the remediation team starts remediating the product, please ensure all the issues are revalidated. A smoke test is done to ensure there's no new impacted area within your product, and continue to take everything to closure. Once everything is taken to closure, now throughout step 1 to 5, you know how many features were there in my product, what are the screen reader specific known issues, where I stand in terms of compliance, have I taken all issues to closure, or there are few issues that are still open due to screen reader behavior or technology limitation. So just ensure that those are being called out so that you don't end up facing any accessibility non-compliance complaint or issue from your end users. Once all of this is done, start formulating an accessibility template, finalize the template, start updating the information, add all the information in the tables with the status, compliance status, and deliver an unbiased, accessible ACR. Whenever you talk about ACR and you own a product, you shouldn't be doing and delivering a VPAT or a ACR. Please ensure you involve a third-party auditor and do an unbiased review of your product and publish your ACR reports. Moving on to next slide. What are the effective strategies for scoping and planning accessibility audits and ACRs? First of all, set clear objective. What is the scope and which ACR I'm trying to deliver? So for that, you need to understand which regulation I need to comply to. Is my product being sold internationally, or I'm targeting US, where I need to only follow section 508. If you are standard, just go for VPAT. If you are going EU specific, just pick up your template and test your product against EN standards. Then confirm, are we targeting single A, double A, which vocab level? These 3 key parameters will help you reach to your end goal, which is delivering a compliant ACR report. Moving on to next slide. What I have done is I have taken a screenshot of the initial page of all the templates that we have for a VPAT. It talks about which edition, is it international, is it vocab, is it section 508, which one is you are targeting. Add the information about your product. Add information when you completed the audit, what is the published date of your ACR. Add brief description of your product, whatever you have audited or remediated. Contact information, which is the support email address or contact or whatever it is for all the accessibility complaints that user will be logging into your system, or where he's can be reached easily. Add your notes. Notes talks about what all features you have edited, any specific section you want to call out. Evaluation method talks about what all screen reader, AT tools, approach, manual versus automation. you have factored in, which type of people with disabilities you have onboarded. Then applicability of the guidelines, is it 2.0, 2.1 or 2.2? So you see in the table, it is yes or no mentioned against each level. So you end up adding information relevant to which vocab you are auditing and which compliance level you are meeting. Moving on to the next slide. So for the international version, the applicability and the standards have 2 additional sections compared to VOCAT 2.0, 2.1 and 2.2. The 4th section talks about revised section 508 guidelines. Are we complying to those? That's the important. That's a row 4 in the table shared. Then also international version wants you to be compliant towards EN 301 549 accessibility requirements for ICT product and services. So this is also what you need to add and update the relevant tables for these specific sections in the international version of your VPAT. Moving on to next slide. Now, when we talk about standard template, we have different 4 templates as we talked about it. In section 508, you will see 3 more chapters getting added, which you need to fill on based on what product type you are reviewing. First one is chapter 3, functional performance criteria, which talks about how your product is stable for different type of user personas and disabilities. Then if your product fall under hardware, you have specific guidelines which you need to update if you have a hardware that you are selling in the market, international market. And for software, again, you have the complete table that needs to be filled for the compliance level. International level have additional 13 chapters. A few of them are common, but it has more information about your web, your non-web documents, your software, your documentation and support services, your generic requirements, and ICT for two-way communication and video capability. There could be possibility that your tool, your software or your product doesn't support video capability or two-way communication, or even you don't have any online support services other than email, then you need to mention it as a note and mark all the elements, all the section in the table as not applicable for your product. Moving on to next slide. How would an ACR look like? ACR is a filled VPAT template. As you see now, we have updated the information. The first highlighted box is name of the company, accessibility conformance report, product information, date, product description. Then you have the email address, then your scope, evaluation method, and ensure to add information of who prepared your ACR report. This is very important because whosoever you onboard as a third-party auditor need to take equal responsibility of the information that is being added as part of the ACR, and it gives the stamping to the users, your end users, that yes, product has been validated by the third-party auditor with the given approach and it is absolutely right and it is unbiased. Moving on to the next slide. So how would the table 1, table 2 and table 3 look like based on whatever information you add in the ACR? So for example, against guideline 1.1.1, you have added the status as partially support because few of the images in your product doesn't have alt text. So please ensure that it is added as the exception as a header, then information on against which specific feature or functionality this issue exists, and elaborate about the non-compliance. Similar way, just try to add any screen reader specific issue or any technical limitation so that it's just an FYI for your end user, but you don't need to worry about that because there is no alternate solution to remediate that specific functionality. Okay, moving on to next slide.
Righty, I think we have a poll next.
Okay.
Okay. So our poll reads, why is it important to include a legal disclaimer in the ACR? Your first option is to limit the liability of the organization regarding accessibility claims. Your second option is to ensure that the ACR remains confidential. Your third option is to indicate that the ACR is only a draft document. And your fourth option is to comply with international privacy laws. So we'll give you a minute to go ahead and answer that. Alrighty, and it looks like we have a sporadic choice of answers. So the majority said to limit the liability of the organization regarding accessibility claims. Some people said to indicate that the ACR is only a draft document, and some people said to comply with international privacy laws. Tarveen, would you like to speak to this? Oh, Tarveen, you're on mute.
Yeah, so the correct answer is to limit the liability and let your end user know where you stand in terms of compliance as of now. Complying to privacy laws is not a requirement of a ACR. ACR is what you publish to your end user where you stand as of today. And it is not a draft document, it is a final document that states this is what we are, this is where we stand, this is our plan, this is our commitment towards accessibility goal.
Thank you, Tarveen. So moving on to our next slide, to echo what Tarveen said, in other words, this lets your consumer know your commitment to accessibility, what you've done so far, what you recognize may still not be working for users with disabilities, and what may need to be done and what your plans are moving forward for that organization in regards to accessibility. At the bottom, we have some samples, so I'll read one of the samples for you. Sample number 1 says, this VPAT represents the compliance levels of the XYZ application with accessibility mode enabled. The content available is in accessibility mode has been rewritten and coded to conform to the screen reading technology and level AA web content accessibility guidelines. Based on our initial testing, we recommend the following system requirements: Microsoft Windows 10, JAWS 2018 or JAWS 2019, and Firefox 63+. And then there's another example down there if you would care to dive into those.
Yeah, just legal disclaimer shows your commitment towards accessibility and what is your thought leadership around it and how well you are connected to ensure you meet the legal requirements. That's what legal disclaimer is.
Alrighty, so we have one more poll for you. This poll reads, when drafting an ACR, which of the following should be included to ensure clarity and effectiveness? Your first option is complex legal jargon to cover all bases. Your second option is technical specifications without explanation. Your third option, clear, concise language, organized remarks, and categorized exceptions. And your fourth option, vague descriptions to allow flexibility. So we'll give you a minute to answer. Okay, and 100% of people answered clear, concise language, organized remarks, and categorized exceptions. Good job.
Okay, moving on to next slide. How should we draft the ACR? What should be the process mechanism around it? First of all, you need to understand that this is not an internal document. This is for your end user. He would not know your product the way you know. So just try to be concise, clear, and easy reporting. Proofread for clarity, use clear information, concise language, be consistent and organized specifically for remarks and explanation section. And the exceptions that you are should be well connected with the user flows. Just don't add your internal terminologies and your categorization. Try to add whatever users see in the end product. Categorize the non-compliance by feature, category, priority, and just read through. It's not mandatory to add all non-compliances. Just understand that is it screen reader specific? Is the information I am adding is not like a very high priority issue, and the issue that I am trying to add is not relevant anymore because I might be taking out this feature completely, or this feature is not visible to student, this is only visible to admin or teacher. You can take that information from student VPAT and add it to teacher or student. Just don't overcomplicate, because we need to understand whatever user sees needs to have the same replica in your VPAT reports. Ensure that your document is fully accessible and it has all the information that can be read through screen reader. Even the bulleted content, try using it a standard bullet format instead of just adding the icons or images in the bullet. Then it becomes very difficult for a screen reader user to read that document. So these are very important aspects of a ACR. Now we have a ACR. What is our next actionables? We are done. We are delivered. We have gone through a long process. Trust me, it looks very short that we started from an audit and delivered a ACR. It's a journey in itself where there's a lot of learning, lot of hiccups, lot of back and forth. And end of day, we all achieve the goal that we have planned for ourselves. First of all, review it. Ensure all the improvement areas are taken into consideration. Just don't take complete ownership on yourself. Ensure this is being reviewed, stamped by all the senior stakeholders within your organization. Share the report across functional teams to align them where we stand as of today and where we need to reach after X number of months. That's very important. Be clear. Don't manipulate any information to just bag your numbers with your organization. Because end of day, this will gonna be end user product. This will gonna be end user ACR report. Ensure you have your maintenance plan, which is update based on if there is any major OS release, any major mobile device release or update to your OS or browser, or if you have updated drastically on design or any new feature has been added to your VPAT. Just understand your product workflow and try to redo the entire thing and get your VPATs updated. We recommend doing it after every 1-2 years, but also it depends on major OS release or any VCAG release that happens. So that's important for us to understand. What is the impact area? Why do we need it? And what is our current user base who is using and accessing our product? So all of this is associated to a dollar, but we also need to ensure this is associated to the legal thing. So please ensure this is also in your roadmap and ensure everything is being done and delivered right for your ACR reports.
All right,
So
beautiful. So that wraps up our informational part of the session, and we will go into our QA portion. If you have any questions, you can feel free to drop them in the QA box below, and we would love to answer them. Additionally, if you have any questions that spur up at times when you are not part of our session, you are more than welcome to email at us at accessibility@magicedtech.com. It's linked down below. So yeah. Awaiting your questions eagerly. And next month, for those of you, if you plan to join us, we are planning on talking about Title II and some of the implications that will come with the DOJ changes to Title II of the ADA. So that'll be a really great session if all of you are available and would like to join us for that.
you don't have any questions? Hope you all liked the session.
That means we did a really, really good job explaining everything. Oh, here we go. Oh, someone said, thank you for the wonderful session, Charveen. And someone said, can you please reiterate on filling section 508 and EN standard section?
Oh, yes. So we have 4 different templates of VPAT. So if you go to ITIC website, you will see there are 4 templates. And within those 4 templates, you will see different sections and chapters. So that's the reason I have added. If you fill up WCAG VPAT report, you don't need to worry about those sections because they don't exist. But section 508 has chapter 3 requirement, which you need to fill, add information stating that my product is compliant to these 6-7 category of disability and how I'm ensuring compliance for these people. So that's the section added to it, and EN has more section depending on product type that you are using.
All righty. Thank you for that, Charveen. And we have one more question. It says, what does some but not all mean? Is there an approximate percentage?
I don't know which section it refers to, some but not all. Like, did we mention it anywhere? Can you please elaborate it for me to answer?
Don't see anything coming in. I'm trying to look through our notes. I feel like perhaps within the success criteria section, but I don't know.
As a way to advertise the benefit of VPAT and ACR document to potential client, what are some top line pointers we can rattle off? So, we need to let people, our top line, understand that either do a ACR or be ready for the legal thing. So lawsuits are getting stricter and stricter. Either do VPAT or end up spending $1 million, a lawsuit, a court, and whatever it takes to come out of it. Otherwise, this is a smaller dollar which can safeguard you from spending millions of dollars as fine. That's my answer to it, Teresa. And once this is established, Teresa, I know it takes all your energy, but once this is established in your organization, it is very easy to take every product to the journey of ACR. Okay, partial compliance in a VPAT.
It looks like under partially supports, we had written indicates the product meets some but not all of the aspects of the criterion. That's what this person
Yes. So partially meets, I have also taken the example, for example, alt text. I have lot of images in my product, but few doesn't have alt text and few have the alt text. So I'm meeting compliance for few, like 50% or 70%, not for entire 100%. Then I end up using partially support against that guideline.
Alrighty.
Okay, any other question? Your feedback is much appreciated. Thank you all for joining, and we'll be soon sharing information about our ADA Title II session, which is a buzzword right now, and people need to learn a lot about it because our laws are getting stricter now, and every product needs to be VCAT 2.1 AA compliance.
Correct. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the session, and we will see you next time.
Thanks all. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.